So we're getting ready to get started here. Thank you for coming to the Fireside Chat. I am Kyu Jung, co-founder, president, CEO of Procon Consulting. We are a construction management, professional management service company that specializes in program management, technology solutions for our AEC customers all across the US. We're headquartered just outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. Many of you might not know this, but Mark Eilich, the co-founder, and I really started this company straight out of college at Virginia Tech. We were doing a research project where we were investigating the use of internet and wireless and video conferencing technology. It was called virtual inspection services. That's my partner, Mark. We flipped a coin, he lost, and he got to wear this gadget. But as you can see, technology has come quite a bit of ways since 1998. And our company was formed with a passion for technology. And really, because of our involvement in this research project, that's what really inspired us to start this company. And so with that, it gives me the honor to really introduce the two guest members that I have here, Zach MacRunnels over at Reconstruct, and our technology evangelist for Procon Consulting, Steve DeVito. So I thought that maybe you guys can just start it off by giving a 30-second introduction of yourself.
Thanks, Q. Thanks for having us. Thanks to CMAA. This is our second event this year. We were on a rooftop. Some of us were together on a rooftop in Chicago not that long ago. It was a little bit cooler. It was nice, but it was a little bit cooler than here. So thanks for coming out. This is just great. And for us at Reconstruct, Kartik, myself, teammates, we're just so excited to be here with our partners Procon over the last couple years, working on government projects. I mean, we clearly would not be here today without these two guys sitting on my left and right. And just a tiny snippet, Reconstruct, we only do one little thing. We track what's there versus what should be there at any point in time. So that's your sneak preview till later.
Thank you, Q and Zach and everyone for being here. I'm super excited to be on stage with these esteemed colleagues of mine. And so Stephen DeVito, I started with Procon in 2012, but I had met Procon in 2008. And immediately meeting Q and Mark, realized there was something different in the way they thought about how we perform our jobs and thinking about innovation and creativity in terms of how can we improve processes that are currently being used in our industry. So I've been lucky enough to be supported by Q and Mark, and working here with Zach, one of the things that we did together was we did innovate on a process of how to capture existing conditions and know what's there before you start a renovation or alteration project.
Okay, so what I thought would be really good if we just lay the foundations on what we're talking about. And so what is remote progress monitoring and how is it beneficial in construction projects?
So I like to start with an analogy. Most folks have utilized Google Street View. And Google Street View is essentially the ability to click on and drag a photo so you can see literally in 360 degrees a sphere from where you're currently located. And I think that when Google did this, they essentially were thinking about how do I know what's really there, right? They could send survey teams to the roadways every so often. They could send photographers or other ways of capturing those conditions. But what they realized was, well, there's already cars driving down the road every day. What if we put a really cool sensor suite on the top of that car and capture what's there? So they do this constantly. They're always capturing conditions, and that's reality. Reality is the future of our business in that we already have inspectors walking the site. We have our car walking through the building at all times. And so why not put a $400 camera on their hard hat using a Reconstruct product and capture what's really there? So that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's just roll the clock back 1 week. I was at Autodesk University and I went to a conference. It was a bunch of VDC people and BIM people. And I thought I was going to hear all about designs and 3D, this and that. And what I heard was they were starving for the scans because they really wanted to make sure what they were designing was actually there. And so I was really surprised. And so we'll talk a lot about that today, the diversity of reality capture and how the various forms of it, whether it's a drone or a camera or LiDAR or that kind of stuff. So it's just fascinating to see this kind of come of age and kind of this merging of BIM and design coming into the reality capture. So
Are there any specific projects and lessons learned you can share with the audience here tonight?
absolutely. For me, it's really easy because I don't think I've ever seen a project that didn't have an aha moment when you're comparing the design versus the reality. There's just some fascinating ones, simple things like things maybe twisted a certain way. And then there's some really serious ones. In the infrastructure world, we work on the Broward County port. And again, we had the 3D layout, the design overlaid on top of the reality capture, and the sand is kind of white there, right, in Broward County. And they had this white pile that was going to be supporting 120 tons of steel at the convention center. And they looked at it and they said, oh, well, something's wrong with this. And they thought it was something wrong with the pictures or something like that. It turns out the pile cap was 90 degrees. So it wasn't put in to support the 120 tons because it was supporting the wrong way. And so that was a serious aha moment, right? So there's other later moments, like we'll work for the Kohl's and the McDonald's, and sometimes the signage will be all backwards and wrong. So just so hard out in the field to be able to track these things.
The GSA pilot project construction site, we had $2.2 billion of construction value, 35 projects, 1,400 users, 120,000 pictures captured over a year and a half. And I think the aha moment was when we saw a demand for this technology that is so easy to use. And I think that's the big thing is, some evangelists like us start talking about technology and you start going, oh my God, there's gonna have to be a project management plan just to do this thing. And so this is so easy to use that it just went viral at GSA. Everyone wanted their project on and they wanted to add more and more users. And to me, that's the aha moment. And the things that we had happen were, first of all, travel, right? People who were traveling to a job site, they live 3 hours away once a week or whatever, they start scaling back because guess what? You can remotely see this job site truly. It's not what a report is saying, it's what reality says. It's a 360-degree reality photo every 10 feet, There was a close-in before an inspector got a chance, I think it was fire and life safety inspector, got a chance to look at beam, whether it had been coded properly. And typically there would need to be either popping of tiles or what have you. But we were able to just send him a link to that picture right before close-in, and he said, okay. It truly really introduced these process improvements that were very profound.
So I know that construction industry is an industry that is unique because it really brings together disparate groups of people on a short period of time where they all have to collaborate. And we all come with our own systems and baggages. And so we're always looking for easy plug-and-play solutions because we're not in a controlled environment like much of the industries that you see that are in controlled situations. And so how do you think that something like this, how does it impact our industry?
I like the Google Maps analogy because it essentially, what we had before that were about 4 or 5 disparate data sets. So if I needed to know what the traffic conditions were on the roadway, I would listen to AM radio traffic on the 2s, KYW 1060, Philadelphia. If I needed to make a reservation, I'd have to go to the phone book or look somewhere. If I wanted directions, that was a separate thing. Satellite views and maps, also separate. Order food, yeah. It's all in one place now. And essentially we have silos of data and processes and people involved in the lifecycle management of facilities. There's, the facility management people, there's the design and construction folks, there's the portfolio folks. They're all using separate systems. And the opportunity is to bind those systems together, and the binding factor is reality. What's really there? And I would challenge folks to tell me what's above the ceiling upstairs when you go to renovate the space or what's behind the walls. And that problem is going away. It's as if we could virtually remove all the surfaces and start with that as the as-built.
I think the photogrammetry part is really intriguing, the simplicity of the photogrammetry. And we say take videos, and people still think you have to do laser scanning. We like laser scanning, but it's amazing how far the photogrammetry's come. You get measurability from photogrammetry. photogram, which is just a fancy word for video, right? And so whether it's your iPhone or a 360 Garmin, or that's the simplicity. And it's almost too good to be true. It's like, is it real? I get that question all the time. You can really do that? Just try it. Upload and then you get the mapping, and you know videos like that translate into measurability, that then translate into designs and quality control. So for me, it's like, just try it. It's come so far from where you had to set up a great big scanner and then go hide around the corner. So
I want to end with one last question. It just came to me as you guys were talking. I know there's a lot of people here that may not be doing this in your projects, or maybe there are a lot of people that actually have been doing this. Let's say you're a person that you don't know where to begin. You're like, this thing's really cool. It sort of feels far-fetched for me. Where do I begin? Do you have any words of advice on where they should begin if they wanted to implement this on their particular project?
yeah, I would say just get started with a reality capture. Whatever reality capture device you happen to have. Whether it's a $400 camera, you can even start with the iPhone or your Android phones. Just start with that. It could be a room. Didn't we start with a room or a small office 2 years ago? Yeah. Start with a video camera. Start with an iPhone and do something very small, and then you upload and then see the magic of measurability, and then after that you can layer on other stuff. You can layer on a little 2D floor plan, or so that's what I'd say. Just get started that way.
So if you're thinking about it in terms of what project should I try this out on, really it's just a matter of getting the right attitude, a project that would be willing to try something new, and letting them know that the cost of trying this out is a $400. I mean, again, you can use anything you want. I would recommend starting with a 360 camera, $400. You can get one that you can return in 30 days, right? Reconstruct has, and most of the vendors in the space have trial periods, right, of whatever, a month, 2 weeks. Spend the 10 minutes training the person to take the pictures, because that's the reality here, is that the training is simple. It takes no time at all. Get this, the person who's walking the site trained on how to take the pictures, and then let's take a look. What has the result been? Are we able to get anything of value out of this? And you don't have to have all your goals set up front to say, what are we evaluating? Some of it will be a surprise to you, that there's some value that you didn't even think about. For example, there was a project where the project team wanted to have 3 users. They were all the general contractor. And slowly, everybody wanted to log in. So the general contractor, the subcontractors, the architect, engineering firm, the owner, everybody's logging in. And in particular, the cabinet contractor, before coming to the site, they would log in to make sure that the cabinetry backing was installed properly behind the walls, right? Those are little things like that will happen that you don't expect. So I agree, give it a try. And Zach and his team is great at. You supported us when we were trying it out. It's really a low level effort to give this thing a spin.
Well, that just about wraps it up. I would love to maybe answer any questions from the audience. Hold on, I'm going to be like Phil Donahue
Go,
here.
Phil.
My question is with regard to the workforce issues that we're having and we're seeing our owners have. What implications have you seen in terms of being able to solve some of that workforce shortage? Do you have any case studies about that?
Well, the one thing that we discovered was it might not be workforce in particular, but it's workforce productivity, because there has been a lot more effective use of on-site visits, because they get, just like the cabinet maker who wanted, before he came out and said, oh, gosh, it's not done. I used to drive out there and then, oh, it's not ready for me. There's a lot of productivity gains in that regard. Translate up to really big projects that we've been on, like this Broward County, $1 billion project that we're on, and a couple other really big projects at some of the major airports. They're honestly thinking about that less travel as a less carbon footprint. So they think about that. So it's a productivity thing, and it's just making people be able to, rather than having to go drive to a site with a truck and a tape measure, they can do it to an inch of accuracy. They can sit at their desk and do 7 projects, in the next 7 hours, rather than 1 project in 7 hours.
I'm just going to give an example. The SSA Altmeyer project in Region 3 GSA, They were a pilot project. And essentially, there was a planned inspection of the fire and life safety systems from people in Philadelphia who were going to drive down to Woodlawn, I guess, and Woodlawn, Maryland. And so they basically, what they did was they practiced in the tool. So they practiced walking the site virtually, and since they could see the whole system virtually, remotely, they were able to figure out all the pathways, what things would look like. You know, they're not just looking at a plan, they're looking at reality again. They planned to do one floor every 2 days. What ended up happening was 2 floors every 1 day. So to your point, the proof is there.
Can I get one more? Uh-oh.
I mean, you're showing all the during construction, but have you seen a lot of interest from people wanting to capture the built environment? Because it seems like a very easy way to do it.
We have so much data from the GSA pilot, but the Madawaska Land Port of Entry was a project, and they were at 35%. They were about to put the bid documents out on sam.gov. Madawaska is a very remote part of the country. It's very hard to get to. And so essentially what GSA wanted to try was the idea of putting an offline version out in the RFP. And this is a great example of getting people to do a pre-bid site visit virtually. Because a lot of people didn't want to come up there that far or whatever. But also, I think a lot of us have been in pre-bid site survey. They have you on site and you're walking around with your camera and some notepad and sketching, but you never really remember what's there, right? We had 500 pictures across the whole land port, 360 degree on the ground, and we actually did a drone capture as well from the air. And that just really helps with the quality of your bids and the number of your bids, because people who wouldn't necessarily make it to the site are able to do that virtually.
So this is, has anybody been to Winnipeg before? This is a Winnipeg 7-Eleven. So 7-Eleven wanted to do a facility assessment on all their Canadian 7-Elevens, but this is an overlay of a facility assessment of what the 7-Eleven was supposed to be like. And so the black lines are what it's supposed to be. The reality is completely different. The coffee board is 2.5 times what it's supposed to be. There was all sorts of crazy things. So this was not construction. This was just a pure facility assessment. And then the next one that came up was actually Tetra Tech bought a building during the heat of COVID. They bought it to convert it to a COVID testing center. They had no idea what they had. The building was from the 60s. They called them Franken drawings. Basically what they did was they used our system basically backwards, create the 2D floor plan, and then go back and forth between 2D and 3D to see what's there, because they had no plans. And so basically then they were able to get this and then measurability. It was nothing to do with construction yet. So lots of different examples of facility assessment.
All right. Can I get any more questions? She gets 2 questions.
Any horizontal case study?
Yeah, we've got a lot where we do a lot of cut and fill excavation measurements. I was surprised 4 years ago when we started to do basically volumetric analysis of the cut and fill. And you could see how much dirt was going out in dump trucks, and you'd be surprised how sometimes there were some corners that were cut by the dump trucks. And on one particular example on a Microsoft project, I don't know if anybody's here from Microsoft, but we saved about $30,000 because we were checking how much excavation was going on.
All right, I think that just about wraps it up, and really appreciate everyone coming out here. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right.